should be able to get this on, you know. I don't think I'd change it.
That looks very smart. You're somewhere.
My old tailcoat, Margot.
Oh,
yes, going to a very special wedding this
you?
afternoon. I think I've got to give it a bit of a press, though, before I go.
OK, see you later, then.
Yes, of course. Hello. Welcome to another 25 minutes of Heartbeat, which today is all about, well, I think I shall let this book tell us. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and Lewis Carroll was so clever in getting the printer to make the mouse's tail into a mouse's tail, getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I have other tales for you right here. Tales on the wrong animals, I fear, because this chap doesn't have a tail like that, but somebody over here does. This one. He has a tail like that. And do you know why a horse has that sort of tail? Well, it's to flick away the flies, so it's really a form of defense against insects. And now, where does this one go? It's very obvious. He's right next door. Here it is, a fish's tail. And fishes have tails like that because a fish has a head and a body, which includes the tail, all part of the body, very, very muscular, and the whole body, including the tail, does that, makes the fish go along. So the fish has a tail for movement. And this tail, the bushy tail, goes here on the squirrel. And he has that sort of tail because, living as he does up in the trees and the leaves, he is leaping from branch to branch all the time, and that tail helps him balance in his leaping. Indeed, some squirrels actually spread themselves out and leap quite long distances, and the tail acts as a sort of parachute as well. Now, what have we got? A crocodile does not have a tail like that. We all know who that tail belongs to. We come down here, and this little tail goes on the rabbit. And why does a rabbit have that sort of tail? Well, quite simple. It's a warning. Something happens, the first rabbit to get the warning starts to run, his little white scut is shown bobbing along, and all the other rabbits follow the tail. So there we are. It's for a warning. And so this last tail has to go on the crocodile, like that. And a crocodile's tail really has two purposes. Defense. It's so strong, so muscular, and as it lashes, no enemy would dare come within the reach of the back. He can also turn round very, very quickly. And it can be an attack too, because if you got in the way of a crocodile's tail, you wouldn't half know it, or maybe you wouldn't know it at all.
One of the most famous landmarks in London is Tower Bridge, which is behind me, and it goes right across the River Thames. And on one side you've got the city, but on the other side you've got Docklands, which is a vast area of warehouses and industrial buildings. Now, if you take a street like this one here, now this street at one time would have been bustling with people working away, actually quite a gloomy looking street with these characteristic iron bridges going across it. But this is an area of great change, and a lot of these buildings are now being converted into offices and apartments. One of the most important buildings in the area is the Design Museum. And this is the first museum in the world entirely devoted to industrial design. It's a museum of everyday things, showing us how and why products are designed the way they are. So let's go and have a look. Nearly all the objects around us, from the toothbrush you use in the morning to the light you switch off at night, have been designed. The clothes we wear, look at these, for autumn 1990 season, to the buildings around us, and even some of the food we eat have also been designed. And that means design is very important in our lives. But what does design actually mean? Well, it's the combination between how something works and how it looks. Now, you may think the way something works is far more important than the way it looks. Well, if that was the case, if you took an everyday object like a telephone and all that mattered was the way it worked, all telephones would probably look the same. But we also care about the way things look too. We want to have a choice with our design. So everything is designed to look different as well. Now, if you take two telephones like these ones here, completely contrasting, this one was very popular in the 1920s, and it's a great design. Look. It's got a handset like this, and you had to speak into the mouthpiece like this. But the actual design of this is not terribly practical. And nowadays, if we look at this other phone here, this one has been designed for the mid-90s. It's one of the most advanced telephones around. And look how small it is when it's closed. And it's been designed very nicely to fit around your face when you use it. Now, here are a great selection of telephones. Some of them you'll probably recognize, particularly this one here, this red telephone, which was a standard design for about 20 years. In fact, it was probably the only telephone that you could get at that time. And after this one, in about the mid-60s, another telephone was designed, this one, which is called the trim phone. And this one became very, very popular because it was so compact, very portable, and quite a nifty little design, don't you think? But of course now, all sorts of designs are around for telephones, and there's one that I really like. It's this one, which was designed in Japan, and it's actually for children. But look at all the bright colours, it's really good fun. There are lots of buttons. These little buttons here play a tune. It really is a great looking phone, I think. So, here are all the telephones, and from these telephones to televisions. Now, when televisions first came onto the market, they had to be watched in a darkened room. But this television changed all that. It was designed in the late 40s, and this pink screen meant that you could still have a light on in the room and get a good picture on your television screen. It was a great improvement, but of course, this one's in black and white, which is the same as this one up here, which is a 50s design, and it's actually being used as an inspiration nowadays for a lot of designs for televisions. But down here, this is a colour television. It was one of the first colour TVs designed by Sony, and it's actually portable, but it weighs so much. And this one was designed in the late 60s. This is a really fun design, and it looks like a space helmet because it coincided with the first moon landing. This is a Vespa, which is a great piece of Italian design. And of course, you see scooters like this today, but when it was designed in the 40s, it completely changed Italian transport. It meant that people could get around much more easily. Now over here, we've got some really up-to-the-minute designs, particularly with this piece here, which is an insulin pen, and that's of course for diabetics. And it's very clever because it combines the insulin, which is the medicine, with the needle and the syringe at the other end. And the good thing is that it doesn't look too unappealing. Most medical things can quite often not look very good, but this one, I think, works very well indeed. And over here, well, this I like very much. Can you believe that's a toothbrush? Look at the shape of it. And this has been designed by Philippe Starck, who's a very, very famous French designer. And to finish it off, he's designed a very nice stand for it. And one other thing with design is quite often the packaging is very important. And this is the packaging for the toothbrush, which I think is very interesting indeed. The way products look is changing all the time. For instance, with electronic equipment in the 80s, the trend was for sort of flashing lights, dials that perhaps didn't do very much. But now, design is much simpler. Shapes are much more rounded and no more flashing lights. And also with products,